1. I used to work at a Waffle House, left for a better paying job, not because I have beef. And one night I'm working the evening shift. It's usually pretty dead at this time, and I use it to clean around the store and areas you couldn't do during busier shifts. Because of other workers just sitting and doing nothing on their shift, they wouldn't do it. I'm cleaning the dust from the air vents and a car pulls up. I get down from the chair and start getting ready to serve customers. Enter Mom 1 and 3 kids, probably like 6, 5, and 3. "Hi, welcome to Waffle House. You can sit wherever you'd like." Mom 1 looks at me for a moment and ushers her kids to a booth near the entrance to the kitchen area. Since there's no door or clear divider, it's just a known rule that customers don't go past the lobby into the kitchen area. Side note, the grill up was great, but during dead shifts, she comes in for the customers, cooks the food, then goes outside to talk on the phone or smoke or whatever, so I was by myself after the food came out. I'm not a huge fan of kids, but I pretend I like them for the job and the tip, you know? The kids are loud but ideal, and I walk over to take their order. "Welcome guys, my name is Hosero. Are you guys ready to order or need a minute to look over?" "I'm meeting my friend. She's on her way." "Okay, no problem. Do you want drinks while you wait?" "Coffee. Lots of cream." "Anything for the kiddos?" "No, not yet." I get her coffee as requested and wait for the friend to come. Sure enough, she pulls up with 3 more kids, maybe around 8, 7, and 6. And they both chat for a while, fine and dandy. I can clean more. They move their kids to a separate booth so they can have mom time, chat about their husbands, wish we served wine, and probably talk about their MLMs or whatever. After a while they order and I bring them their food, another coffee and 6 chocolate milks. Feels like 3 minutes before the 3-year-old spills his chocolate milk and the moms are so oblivious that I move over and start cleaning before they even notice. "Oh, sorry," says Mom 1. "It's alright, accidents happen." I was lying through my teeth. 5 more minutes pass and the 3-year-old starts wandering behind the kitchen. Moms don't notice. In my fakest voice, "What are you doing back here? You coming to help me do the dishes?" The kid stares and keeps walking behind the counter, and I have to kind of form a barrier so he can't go any further. If he slips and gets hurt, it's a liability. But I also can't touch him to move him out. The moms finally notice and his mother goes through gritted teeth. "Liam, get back here and sit down." He slowly exits the kitchen area. This happens again. This time I offer a plea deal. "If you go sit with your brother and sister, I can give you a hat. How's that sound?" He stares, then returns to the booth. I bring the hat and the other kids whine they also want hats. I oblige. Next thing I know, the 3-year-old is laughing while tearing his hat to shreds on the floor and trying to steal his brother's. Moms are busy chatting away until the brother starts crying that 3-year-old took his hat. Mom scolds her kids and goes back to chatting. Finally, towards the end of a long-ass meal, they start to gather their things very slowly. But hell has no mercy. And the 3-year-old takes his uneaten sausage patty and puts it on the booth seat, then proceeds to stomp and jump on it until it's more dead than it already was. I feel my soul leave my body. The moms pay, and collectively I got a $6 tip. $6 whole, wow. They offer a sorry for the mess with a subtle note of, "But it's your job, so..." and go on their merry way. I'm left to clean up everything, and all for $6 fucking. 2. I was a server a few years ago at a nice steakhouse. Good way to make some money during college. I liked my co-workers. I overall liked the clientele. But there were a handful of nights where I wanted to crawl into a hole and let the restful darkness overtake me, never to emerge. The following occasion is one small example. A few members of a group of 10 to 12 well-dressed young 30-somethings comes in for a reservation. We know them. They come here often, drink tons but aren't loud or assholes about it. They do have the attitude of people with good money who have been privileged all their lives, meaning servers are somewhat beneath their notice, but I'm okay with apathy. When they do interact with me, they're always polite. So I get assigned to the table, and I'm not too surprised when they start to run me a little ragged right off the bat. Their arrivals are slightly staggered, so I'm running to get orders of 2 to 3 drinks at a time, only to have a few more people order drinks as I'm dropping off the previous order. But I figure everyone will get there, get them some, alcohols and things will slow down a little. Not tonight. Since these people drink a lot, by the time the last few arrive, the first people are ready for more drinks. They're all finishing their beverages consistently quickly, but each at different times. They also won't order drinks as the ones they're working on get low. The result? Only one person at a time will order a drink. I'll ask if anyone else wants another drink and the table just ignores me every time. But when I drop off the drink, one more person will want to order one. I literally spend about 30 to 45 minutes going back and forth between the table and the bar, doing nothing else because the party simply won't let me escape this temporal loop from hell. It's annoying. It's really, really annoying. I try to be an understanding person in general, though, and I tell myself they honestly don't realize what they're doing because they're all so focused on their conversation. They're all polite when they order. Nobody is actively trying to be a jerk, which is a win in the service industry. I grit my teeth and commit to making it through the night without getting too upset about it. So they get food. I continue to deliver beers and vodka sodas, and now we're nearly at the end of the night. They reach the end of their meal and I'm ready for the overwhelming sense of peace that will ensue after I clear their table. Only to discover their supposed cluelessness about what they're doing to me cannot be justified any longer. They're all stacking their plates on me. I know this doesn't sound too bad at first, but there are some complicating factors at play here. These plates are all covered with silverware and leftover food. And if it's pushed to one side of the plate, the next plate will go tilted. This is fine for a few plates. Not for 6+, certainly not for 10 to 12. And most definitely not with the additional appetizer plates they insisted stay on their table throughout the meal. It's going to be the Leaning Tower of Pisa without the benefit of some semblance of engineering. It will be Kanye West's St. Pablo tour stage, but if you covered it with butter and put Kanye on roller skates. This is a nice restaurant, so the plates are quality and heavy. I'm 5'2" and absolutely not that strong, let alone tall enough to hold that many plates and still see. I also can't reach past the tall chair backs and at least grab the plates as they pour in from every direction to get a little extra control. I actively protest, telling them to please let me collect their plates on my own, because otherwise this tenuously balanced stack is going straight on the ground. But they ignore me. I am trying not to panic. They have about half the plates shoved into my arms, and I know I can't handle any more. What happens next may have both been my saving grace and my humiliation. Almost in slow motion, a knife starts to slide off of the plate. I may have quick reflexes, but I sadly lack the ability to grow an extra hand. I cannot grab it. I try to lean back and right the sinking ship, but it's too late. I'm right behind one woman, the top of the diagonal stack perfectly aligned with her neck, and I watch in horror as the knife goes right off the plate and down the back of her shirt. How might this be my salvation, you ask? The heretofore indifferent table has now noticed me, and they stop in their tracks. I am now safe from the ravages of an additional 8 plates, and more importantly the feared outcome of shattering half the restaurant's plates and silencing a room of 100. Unfortunately, I now face the shell-shocked eyes of 12 pampered young adults as I stammer gracelessly. I try to pull the knife out of the shirt before remembering I do not have an extra hand, and I flee to the kitchen. To their credit, everyone is kind, or at least uncomplaining, about the incident. They all tip their normal 20%. They don't flag my manager in outrage, and they leave without a fuss. But I bet they'll think twice about treating their server carelessly again. 3. So I work at a gourmet burger restaurant in the UK, and I have done for almost 5 years. I'm currently a supervisor, so I often have to deal with complaints or just general inquiries. One of the more common complaints we get is that the burgers have pink in them. We cook all of our burgers medium as a standard. It says on the menu, and we try to mention it where possible because we understand some people want it cooked more. Sometimes people get really funny at us and say, "Oh god no, you can't have burgers medium." Like, yeah you can, idiot. We even go down to medium rare and we cook everything to a specific temperature which our company has tested in a laboratory, so we know for a fact it's safe. Plus, there's a special place in hell for anyone who orders anything well done. Unless you're a pregnant lady, then you're off the hook. So the other day a couple came in, older gentleman, greying hair, glasses, and a nice suit with his wife. They look way too posh to be in our burgers restaurant, probably going to see a show in the theatre around the corner. It's kind of busy, and we have tables reserved, so there's no seats available. Also, there's a family waiting for the next table already. The waitress, 5'1" and cute as fuck, by the way. Relevant because how can you be rude to someone like that? Went to speak to them at the door. By this time they had moved towards the floor to sit themselves. P.S. Just wait to be seated. It's really fucking annoying when people just come in and sit themselves. Especially if the table is dirty. The waitress told him that there are no tables available. The guy pointed to the reserved table and said something like, "Yes, there is. What about that one?" She explained how it was a booking and he told her, "You don't do bookings here." Like, okay, sure, you know best. Already alarm bells are ringing that this guy's going to be a handful. After that, he pointed to a table that was leaving. But she explained how the family behind them, patiently waiting for a table, are going there. He said that was okay and stood right in the way between the floor and the kitchen and bar. Soon after, the table of two left and they sat down before we could clean the table properly. So skip forward and I take the guy's order. He asked for one of the 2 burgers to be cooked well. So I put the note on the ticket. He said, "Make sure there's no blood. Make sure it's well done but not burnt." Cool, no problem. I'll make sure it's cooked that way for you. Also, no please or thank you. Our kitchen till printer messed up, so the chef cooked both the burgers for that table well done, instead of just one. When we took the food over, he waved over the other girl working and complained about his burger being overcooked. She explained about the printer, apologized and gave him a voucher for a free burger. A few minutes later, he waved me over. When I got to the table, he pointed at his wife's burger, which had been deconstructed. It looked like they had been looking for something to moan about, and said, "There's pink in that." The burger was cooked well, there was no pink at all. Just a small area that was slightly less brown or purple than the rest of the burger. I started to explain how we cook everything to temperature, and that because of the quality of the beef there may be some extra juicy parts, but he cut me off saying, "I'm a chef, and you can't tell me this isn't pink." Again, it wasn't pink. Also, what kind of chef orders well-done food? Surely you know better. Well done equals ruined. I decided to just give in and I apologized and offered to put that burger back on the grill. He said no, he wanted a fresh one. So I told him it would be another 15 minutes while we cook it and walked off. I'd been having a bad few weeks mentally, so I could feel myself getting ready to argue, and he was being very rude in the way he was talking and his body language, like pointing at me and stuff. Maybe 10 minutes later he came up to the bar and asked for some more fries. I said I'd bring them out with the recook. When the waitress took the recook and fries over, I gave her a bill for the fries. My thinking was he had a voucher for the first complaint, and another free burger for his wife. I'm not a charity. And he can pay for the chips he specifically asked for extra. Anyway, she took it over, and when she gave him the bill, he told her he wanted to speak with me immediately. I went over, fully pumped and ready to fight. And he said the following: "After you messed up our order and cooked our food wrong, you expect me to pay for these chips? Disgusting!" Talking loud enough that pretty much everyone can hear him, so he was talking in a very condescending and rude manner. I then explained how he had the voucher and a free recook, and that he had asked for the fries, but I was cut off again and he started going on about how we messed his order up. I was stood there in the middle of the restaurant just taking a verbal onslaught, and then I just had enough. I stopped him mid-sentence and said, "You're wrong. There was nothing wrong with the burger, it was cooked exactly to our standards. There was no pink at all, and you wouldn't let me explain earlier on." He then said the whole, "I'm a chef, don't tell me that's not pink, I know better." My brain at the time, blah blah, F you mate, I've been working here for years. I know what I'm talking about, you miserable old git. We argued over the burger some more, and then I told him we can just agree to disagree. He then said he'll pay for the chips and he dismissed me, waved his arm and said to go away, and that I'll be hearing from him. I then went to the bar to calm down. I was pumping with adrenaline, and I'm the kind of person who starts to cry when I get mad. I emailed my regional manager to let her know the situation because he was already writing a complaint out. When he came up to pay for the chips, I was completely silent, and it was awkward as fuck. Also, what's quite funny is 2 tables came up to me and said well done to me for sticking up to him. One guy came up and said, "Tell me this ain't the Ritz." Whoever that guy is, thanks, that was funny. 4. I just quit my job serving this week for an industry job, and I would love to leave you all with the story of my favorite customer. I worked at a cute family-centric pizzeria in a nice part of Southern California for nearly 2 years. Due to the great location, I would say 9 out of 10 patrons at least meant well. We did have some snooty people, but nothing over the top. The other 10% were usually pretty forgettable after they left, but then holy fuck. There was this woman who we will call Rosie. Rosie is a stout blonde woman who is either a very weathered 50s or average 60s. Rosie always pays in $2 bills. First time I meet her, no one was around to warn me. I'm serving and we have a 16-year-old hostess working who happens to have a septum bull piercing. Rosie wanders in the middle of a dead Wednesday and starts hassling the hostess. And right away my internal high-maintenance customer alarm goes off. My manager at the time is a flaky cokehead, and I can't find him. So I just keep an eye on the front as this woman is clearly hammered and won't leave our hostess alone. Eventually, viewing from afar doesn't cut it, and she wanders over to me and starts going off on some tangent about how these young girls keep butchering their faces with metal piercings and looks like shit. I tell her plenty of people like the look to try to diffuse while not escalating. She is unpleased, and asks me if the owner is around and if he's gotten a divorce yet. She is guaranteed to ask about the marital status of the owner every time. I tell the hostess to hide in the back till she leaves, just because Rosie kept telling her her piercings looked like shit. And I also have a flaky-ass manager who wouldn't have my back if I kicked her out. She wanders to the bar and someone else is stuck with her. Perfect. She goes up to 2 random young adults and buying them shots, and they find her hilarious. So they party together for a bit until she shouts, "He's got some coke here!" They are embarrassed and offer to take her somewhere else, since there are kids around. So grateful. Next time she comes in, a year has passed and she is nearly a memory. She comes in again and I warn my new manager. "A crazy woman is here. I've seen her before and she scares away customers." Manager offers to keep an eye on her but won't kick her out without reason. Fair, but fuck. She comes up to me, she engages. She proceeds to make shitty small talk about the owner with me, while flexing each of her huge titties at me one at a time. I try to pretend it's not happening, but she asks me if I like her cool party trick. No! I am luckily off the clock, and now get to scram. But she comes in a month later. She dines in this time and I am sat with her. I refuse to serve her. She has made female servers cry and flirts with all the dudes and upsets other tables. At the time we had a new server who was desperate for tables and he tells me, "If you don't want her, I'll take her." I try to warn him but he doesn't listen. I warn him his tip will be $2. He goes out there and takes about 20 minutes of his time just for one slice of cake. On the way out she engages me again and I try to walk away but only after I've already learned she isn't allowed to drive because she has seizures. I watch her violently hit on some random customer on the way out. Honestly, I find her fascinating. Another recent visit from Rosie was a bad one. We have a female bartender serving her. She is extra nasty towards women. And I warned the bartender right away, just try to be quick and not engage because the managers won't bar her. Later the food runner delivers the wrong pizza to Rosie and we actually have to take it back, and she throws a fit of course. She gets a drink then wanders around talking to random tables. Bartender later tells me that Rosie asked her about why she was working in such a bad restaurant, and what the bartender's plans for the future were. The bartender tells her she is working for her real estate license right now, so she can eventually afford a house. Rosie, incredulous, says, "Well, you won't be able to afford that working here, honey," and throws some $2 bills literally at her. My final sighting, she comes in with a newspaper from like the 70s, and she shows the hostess a picture of her when she was younger, apparently the model for one painting, and she shouts, "I had a respectable profession, unlike working in a restaurant, damn it!" And she takes her pizza and leaves. The hostess looks back at me and asks what her problem is. All I can say is I don't know. But that is not what healthy, normal people do. Enjoy the rest of your miserable existence, lady. 5. So today I had something interesting happen for once. I had a couple tables, but we were pretty slow for the most part. I was next through the door, and I was running food to a table when 2 guys with a dog walked in. Since I was busy, another server took them to a table in a closed-off back room we have, to give them some privacy since they had the dog. She took their drink order for me, and I made their drinks to bring over. One ordered a Diet Coke, the other just had water. Since I didn't know who ordered what since I didn't take the order, and to be honest I hadn't noticed the dog yet, I walked over to the table and was holding a drink in each hand and asked, "Am I putting these in the right spot?" They both looked straight at me and said, "No." So I switched them. I sat them down, turned around, and tripped on the dog. Out of a reaction I said, "Oh, a dog!" and went to pet the dog, but stopped myself and asked if I could first, assuming he was a service dog. They said of course, and I pet the dog and walked out to put the drink order in. The owner saw this, and I got bitched at for petting the dog. He wanted to know why the dog was there, so he went in to confirm the dog was indeed a service dog, and they said yes. And one of the guys said he was blind. I didn't say anything then, because I honestly didn't care, but I remembered they both looked at me when I put the drinks in the wrong spots, and the blind guy knew I did so. So if he was blind, he obviously wasn't completely blind. Now, this dog was a pit bull, had no service jacket, and obviously wasn't trained as he was running around the entire back room. Luckily, nobody else was back there yet. Naturally, we decided we just wouldn't let anybody sit in the back room until they left. Then a 10-top walks in and requests the back room. Shit. So we take them back, and the dog escapes as we open the door. He's running around tables having a good old time as I'm chasing him. The dog's owners. They're enjoying their meal, paying no attention to their service dog. I finally catch the dog and bring him back. I leave again, but sure enough, within 2 minutes I look back and find the dog sitting next to the 10-top, jumping on people's legs, looking for pets, which he gets. I bring the dog back again, and this happens a few more times without the dog's owners doing anything to rein their dog in. The owner finally has had enough. Tells them they either need to keep the leash in their hand from now on or leave. They feel embarrassed, I assume. And the not blind guy leaves, and the blind guy comes out of the room, up to the bar with his dog. He spots me, again obviously not blind, calls me over to get his bill. I hand him his bill, and from this point on he's putting on a show. He needs me to read him the bill and asks how much he owes. I tell him. He opens his wallet and starts counting out the money. His total was $25. He throws me a 20 and a 10 and goes, Oh, wait, 26, 27, 28, 29, you're gonna take my last dollar, 30. Makes a big show about the big tip he left me and thanked me for being cool about his service dog. Long story I know, but it's probably the most entertainment I've had at work in a long time. This dog was everywhere, and we had to be careful to not kick out a guy with a legit service dog, in case we were wrong. Hey everybody, Hellfreezer here, and thank you very much for listening to Spinning Plates, number 31. And thank you very much to everybody who allowed me to use their stories in this video. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that the dog in story number 5 there, although I believe pit bulls can be used as service dogs, wasn't a service dog, especially given the way it was behaving. A service dog would generally be much more disciplined, in case its owner obviously needs its assistance. Interesting thing about story number 1, I think it was number 1, with the kid wandering into the kitchen almost, is that a similar thing happened when I used to work retail. The place I worked in, for the most of the time I worked there, and I was there for almost 15 years, for most of that time, they didn't have a barrier separating the till area from the rest of the shop, which meant customers could, and did, you'd have to tell them not to, wander behind the tills and start looking at the bottles they had there. They didn't really need to do that, they could have just kind of looked over the counter. So you tell the customers, and the adults would usually, oh, right, fine, sorry, and I think maybe once somebody got snippy with me. And but you would occasionally get kids wandering behind, and obviously there's a lot of very expensive glass bottles, and there was also an area where food would be prepared as well, so you couldn't have them in that area in case they hurt themselves. I'd usually encourage the parents, pick up your kid, they can't be behind there. Or I'd shoo the kid away. Now, that would rarely work, the shooing part. So eventually what I'd do is I'd just grab them and pick them up and hand them back to the parents. Never once got a complaint about that. It might be different in the US, but the parents generally seemed fairly relaxed and appreciative that I stopped their little darlings from hurting themselves and possibly giving the parents a very expensive bill for a lot of broken bottles. Okay, and with that, I'm going to head off for now. So until next time, thank you very much for listening, and take very good care of yourselves.